Good morning, everybody. This is Eureka John, and this is Eureka Street Crypto Hub, broadcasting live on Theta TV at 6:27 in the morning on July 21st, 2021. And I'm broadcasting from Leander, Texas. I do this every single morning. This is my video blog, aka crypto variety show. I guess you could call it that. Kind of a stream of consciousness thing where I just talk about everything that I've learned and continuously learning in the crypto world, and just a way for me to have some time to myself in the morning as well before I become an employee, a husband, a dad, and many other things to lots of people. So this is my time just to be myself for me. So yes, and I'm continually learning, and I'm fumbling through all this. Sometimes I get things wrong, sometimes I get things right. Some shows are terrible and some shows are amazing, but whatever. I'm not here to shill anything because I'm not sponsored by anybody, and I'm definitely not here to be your teacher either. But I am here to maybe present some resources to you to be able to do your own research in this crypto world. And if you have any questions, feel free to DM me, whatever. I'm on Twitter, as you can see my little address down there at the bottom. And then you can comment on YouTube. I have a Telegram group. It's down there in the Theta video description. And then, that's about it, man. So let's go over here to CoinGecko and see what is going on today. I know it's been pretty dismal for a lot of the more trading oriented people. Hey, what's up, 29LHO6? Lots of resources gained from my program. Thanks. It's just stuff that I happened to look at the day before or find in a podcast. I listen to a podcast every single day going to and from work, and that's an hour commute. So gotta have something to keep the mind active. Otherwise, I'll road rage on people cutting me off and all types of other stuff, So, yeah. Better not to do that and to put your mind on something constructive, I think. Let's see here. Bitcoin at $31,498.68. Ethereum at $1,906.96. It got down to like 17 something yesterday, which is crazy. But I say that, but just this time last year, Ethereum was, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't anywhere near this. It was under 1,000 for sure. Let's just take a quick look and see where Ethereum was, just to put it into perspective. When in doubt, zoom out for sure, and you'll see that where we are is not bad at all. So this time last year, we were at $245.23 for Ethereum. And back then I was thinking like, I don't know if I want to buy this, man. It's kind of expensive, and Here I am thinking like, oh man, I need to hurry up and buy some of this before it spikes back up because with all this stuff being implemented on Ethereum, EIP 1559, this triple halving effect that's going to be happening here, things merging over to Ethereum 2.0, all these DeFi applications being built on Ethereum, all these bridges from other blockchains, bringing interoperability to Ethereum to other blockchains. I mean, there is just so much stuff happening with Ethereum, and it's incredible. And a lot of people say, well, Ethereum's kind of slow, and there's so many amazing new blockchains now that can allow smart contracts that are so much better, and that may be true, but they are Ethereum is being adopted by the institutions. It has a track record. You're not going to see institutions picking up Cosmos or Zilliqa or anything else, but not saying that these other blockchains won't have their place, because they will, but they will bridge to Ethereum, and Ethereum, I think, will kind of be the final settlement, where a lot of these other blockchains will start taking up these smaller application DeFi mantles that Ethereum is currently handling right now. That's just my opinion, man, but that's what it is. For me. So anyway, Tether, Binance, and USDC are three stable coins in the top 10. We have Binance Coin at 286.81 and Cardano at $1.16, kind of hovering around there, and it's up 11.8% in the past 24 hours. XRP is 55 cents. Doge is back up 13% to 18 cents. Polkadot up 13.7 to $12.17. Uniswap up 8.8. So everything's kind of going back up after all this. I wonder if it was a bear trap. Now let's take a look and see what a bear trap is. Bear trap. And they have the bull trap and they have the bear trap. So bear trap, well, I guess I better in finance, not like a literal bear trap. So yeah, that sucks to get my foot caught in one of those, that's for sure. All right, so let's see here. Bear trap definition. Investing is a tricky endeavor. Okay, there are many tricks and traps that the uninitiated can fall into. The bear trap is one of them. A bear trap is a technical pattern that occurs when the performance of a stock, index, or other financial instrument incorrectly signals a reversal of a rising price trend. This trap is thus a false reversal of a declining price trend. Bear traps can tempt investors to take long positions based on anticipations of price movements that do not occur. Let's see if I can just find something real quick, like a quick little graph, because I like visuals. You know, I'm kind of a visual learner. I think I don't know. I don't want to categorize anybody into one specific style of learning. I learn all types of ways, but bear trap example. The best way to explain what a bear trap is through the history of Tesla stock, which is probably the best known story stock in the past generation. The company has attracted impassioned supporters and detractors, staking large portions of their wealth on the trade. Without the fanfare of Elon Musk and fancy marketing, Tesla would be a regular car manufacturer to most, one which is producing expensive cars in a new and uncertain industry. Just look to the legendary automakers like GM and Ford, who trade at $58 billion and $35 billion respectively, compared to Tesla's behemoth $630 billion market cap. This is the argument of the shorts. Some of the most well-respected short sellers like Jim Chanos and David Einhorn are ardent Tesla bears. They have complaints about accounting, financial viability, and valuation. As such, Tesla went from a small niche company to the dominator it is today. Shorts took every bearish catalyst as a reason to add more to their position. And at each point until today, their positions have been decimated. Like it or not, Tesla has become a bear trap machine. And yeah, so how to avoid a bear trap. Bear traps get into bad trades every day, and not everything is a bear trap. A bear trap is a culmination of several avoidable factors that can leave you ruined on the short side. A bear typically loses multiple times their average risk per trade in a bear trap. Okay. Yeah, I still don't really see financial definition, everything you wanted to know about it, bear trap. Being a bear is being pessimistic about a company or some type of investment. And so, what is a bear trap? In depth with Chris. Is a bear trap is a technical pattern that commonly occurs when a stock or broader index misleadingly reverses after trending upwards. These patterns can often trick and lure investors into shorting based on anticipated downwards price movements that never end up happening. Okay, so when somebody shorts something, they are betting on its failure. So pessimists, they will see something going up and up and say, this is not going to happen forever. You know, this is destined to fail. And then the second it starts going down, they're like, aha, I told you. You know, and then they short and they sell. And then right after that, it spikes back up again and continues back up on its upward trajectory. So that is a bear trap. It catches those bears and those pessimists saying, I told you so, the second it starts going down, and then it continues its upward trajectory. So are we in a bear trap right now? Basically, that was the whole premise of it. Now that things are going back up, and I've seen people on Twitter and other places saying that right now cryptocurrency space is in a bear trap. So I don't know. Either way, I've been saying it's a good time to buy for quite a while. I mean, Theta is a deal here. Polygon is a deal at under $1. There's lots of interesting things going on with both projects. So yeah. Anyway, so I've been trying to figure out a lot of this stuff. This is either way, like I say, every day I'm in it for the tech, and I'm in it for the ideology behind everything going on, for the opportunity for the average person like me to use financial tools that I would never normally get to use because I'm not an accredited investor, and for the ability to be able to subvert the credit system. In a dystopian point of view, if they do indeed implement these types of passports, jab passports, and anything like that that require me to have that qualification or any other type of qualification, say for instance, if they bring in CBDCs and they have programmable smart money that tells you when, how, where, why, and how fast you should spend your money, you have to know the system in order to be able to hop on the lily pads and be able to navigate through any possible attempt at enslavement through money being put upon you. And so that's another reason why I'm learning all this, with the technology being the way it is, and with like I said, CBDCs and smart money and oracles bringing data to the blockchain, and any type of mistake you ever make financially being put on the blockchain and never being forgiven. No years of jubilee. What is it? Every 7 years or something, any negative mark on your credit gets dropped off. Well, what would happen with the blockchain? Is there any type of jubilee in that aspect? So I don't know. Just lots of questions. But on the positive note, I can also figure out how to sell my data. If indeed all our data gets decentralized and is no longer data collected and put on centralized servers like Facebook and Twitter and all these other places, and we end up in the end owning our data like the Brave browser strives to help us do, and monetize off our data. And if we can put the data of our choice about us on the free market to sell and make a passive income from our data, I want to know how to do that too. And that's another reason to really explore this technology and to get into crypto. I heard somebody on a podcast yesterday saying that in the future, or even now, for instance, like the Facebook company that's just accumulating, in Google, accumulating data and data and data and data, and they're putting all this data and personal data and surveillance data and everything about people, what their habits are, what websites they've been to, all this data. In the end, it could be a huge liability for companies rather than something that could, rather than an asset. If anybody hacks into that, then suddenly they are liable for billions of dollars worth of lawsuits and all types of stuff. And so, is it really smart for all these large companies to keep this data? So that's another case for data to become decentralized. And I never thought about it that way before. You think of data as the new oil, data as the new money, information about you as the new oil and new money and everything like that. And so naturally people want to accrue and hoard something that seems to be of value. But what happens when you have so much of it that it becomes a definite liability? So you almost want to give back ownership to the source that it came from, which is the people. And then that data truly makes a person unique and an individual. No, good or bad, take the good or bad and the morality out of it. The fact that you have experiences in your life make you unique and give you inherent value. So what to do with that value is a reason to be able to study all this cryptocurrency and this Web 3.0 and blockchain 3.0 technology that is happening, because it will help you navigate what to do with your value in this new economic order that is being brought and ushered into us. So anyway, I've been feeling kind of philosophical this morning because I've been reading this Masters and Slaves of Money by Robert Breedlove. It is an exceptionally long article, and it's absolutely in the character of Robert Breedlove to write something that is extremely long-winded and goes pretty deep philosophically. But I love that, that's all you do in grad school is just read, so you spend a lot of time reading and then you write about what you read. And so that's basically what Robert Breedlove does. If you aren't familiar with his What is Money podcast, let's see. I would highly recommend listening to it. He does a series with Michael Saylor, talk about what is money. It's on Apple. I listen to it on Spotify. So let's see here. Yeah. So I mean, the guy has amazing interviews, amazing perspectives. He really digs into the philosophy of a lot of this stuff. I just finished listening to his series with Bixby, the Frisbee series, and you know, I can't remember the guy's first name, but he's a British guy. He's a British comedian. He's hilarious, and he has an amazing insight on all things money and history and stuff like that, and taxation. So this entire series was talking about taxation and how all wars were basically rooted in taxation. And so yeah, it's an amazing series to listen to. Everybody talks about the Michael Saylor series on the What Is Money show, but the Frisbee series, to me, it spoke to me even more than the Michael Saylor series. So I would highly recommend listening to the Frisbee series because it's a little less well known. So yeah, I mean, do it piece and parcel. Like I listen to little pieces here and there of what I can manage to listen to on commutes, and then I just continue on later. You don't have to sit down and do all this at once. And this long ass article here, I've read it piece and parcel over the past like couple weeks, just when I had time to sit down, or just take a look at my phone, or before I go to bed and I'm reading and then the phone falls on my face. So yeah. Anyway, so let's take a quick look. Masters and slaves of money. Okay. Money's a tool for trading human time. Central banks are the modern era masters of money, wield this tool as a weapon to steal time and inflict wealth inequality. History shows us that the corruption of monetary systems lead to moral decay, social collapse, and slavery. As the temptation to manipulate money has always proven to be too strong for mankind to resist, the only antidote for this poison is an incorruptible money, Bitcoin. And this article, too, made me want to consolidate some of my more alternative, opportunistic token investments in order to reel it in and narrow my focus a little bit towards this specific incorruptible sound money called Bitcoin. Anyway, they start talking about agary beads. In ancient Western Africa, agary beads, small decorative glass beads, were used as money for many centuries. Of uncertain origins, these beads were a means of wealth transfer between people and trade as money across generations, as dowries or heirlooms. When European explorers appeared in Africa in the 16th century, so the 1500s, it was quickly apparent to them that agary beads were highly valued by African locals. I thought that the Roman Empire did this before the European explorers, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I've read a couple different sources. But either way, that's not the point he's trying to split hairs about. So anyway, since glassmaking technology in Africa was primitive at the time, agary beads were difficult to produce and therefore reliably scarce relative to other goods, a monetary property which supported their market value. Back in Europe, glassmaking technology was more sophisticated. Counterfeit beads, usually identical to agary beads, could be mass-produced at a low cost. Seizing the opportunity, many crafty Europeans began arranging expeditions to Western Africa, shipping in huge quantities of indistinguishably counterfeit agary beads, expertly fashioned in European glassmaking facilities. So the Europeans had the tech, the Africans used the beads as currency, so it provided a bit of scarcity to it, and scarcity is a key component in money and value. This scheme was one of the first known large-scale money counterfeiting operations in the world. What followed this seemingly innocuous exportation of glass beads was a multi-decade plundering of African wealth, natural resources, and ultimately time. When people think of money, they don't necessarily think of time, but money is an expression of time, of somebody's work energy and time. Money is somebody's energy encapsulated and represented symbolically. And they say, I give you 3 hours of my work energy for this loaf of bread. Hopefully bread won't cost that much, but I'm just saying, even at minimum wage. So yeah. That would be $25 or something for a loaf of bread. Anyway, as European ships arrived on African shores, many holes packed full of glass beads, locals readily traded their hard-earned assets for what they believed were precious agary beads. Spanning the course of decades, this trading of real estate assets for counterfeit beads facilitated a surreptitious confiscation of African wealth by Europeans, a slow-motion criminal episode that crippled African society for centuries to come. Agri beads would later become known as slave beads. As newly impoverished Africans became desperate, some were forced to sell themselves or others as slaves to their European usurpers. Slave beads, one of history's many monetary systems weaponized by counterfeiters, became instrumental in the multi-century transatlantic slave trade. So if you counterfeit money, you are lowering the value of somebody's work energy. And that means somebody would have to work more in order to produce the same type of value and the same type of buying power. And so, in a sense, when the central bank is pumping out money like they're doing right now through quantitative easing, and inflation and stuff like that, basically all they're doing is devaluing our work energy and stealing our work from us. And that's what happened with the Africans. Is the Europeans came over there and they saw that these beads were valuable to them, and they're like, we can be powerful. We can come over here and be the cock of the walk and bring our ships full of these beads and be the rich people. And then at first they were like, oh yeah, man, they got all this money, and they're gonna buy it from me, and I can charge them whatever I want, and I'm gonna be, the big fish in my little pond. And they got super rich, and they spread that wealth around. Well, sooner or later, rather than sooner, actually, it's just a slow process over time. It's like a frog being put in a pot of boiling water that slowly builds heat. You don't realize you're in it until you're dead, because you got boiled to death. And that's what kind of happened with the economy and these slave beads being put into place. And then it also happened and then later here, ironically, the same ships that brought over the beads were the same ones that held all the slaves, because people could no longer afford to pay their debts because of the debasement and the loss of value of their currency. So, yes, unfortunately, this pillaging of wealth was not an isolated episode. Cloth strips were another form of money. The Portuguese created cloth strips called panos, and they the Portuguese producers, the pano producers, soon established a state-sponsored monopoly called the Grão-Pará and the Maranhão Company, which mandated the use of its warehousing and trading post operations for all financial flows denominated in panos. The company enforced the use of panos for tax payments to forcibly denominate slave trade contracts and to hire soldiers. So they basically made everybody go to the company store. And Kublai Khan, Marco Polo writes about going over to China or Mongolia, and Kublai Khan there had, is just marveled at how he could take leaves and bark from trees and turn that paper into something of value. And he called him the greatest magician of all time, because he was able to forcibly make people use tree leaves as money, representing work and value. And when you crossed over to the border into Kublai Khan's territory, then you had to turn over all your goods and buy that paper tree leaf that Kublai Khan called money, and you had to transact with that. And that was kind of Kublai Khan's way of plundering you and enslaving you, because you can't go outside of his territory because you'll have nothing, nothing of value. But inside your territory, as long as you hold that tree leaf, then you do have value. But you become the slave of the physical border where that tree leaf has some type of value and denomination. So yeah, that's another way that the money has entrapped and enslaved people. To name just one similar non-coincidental example today, the U.S. government enforces the use of dollars for tax collections as legal tender, as a nominal currency for contracts on the oil, the energy slave of modernity, and international reserve currency, the infamous exorbitant privilege. Even events strikingly similar to agri beads and panos and the Kubla Khan's tree leaves are playing out today throughout the global economy. The US dollar in your pocket, the one you sacrificed so much to obtain, was recently mass-produced by the US government with near effortless keystroke. In the same way Europeans had access to superior glass-making technology that gave them the ability to counterfeit money at a low cost, or the Portuguese monopolized panos production, central banks have an exclusive privilege to produce money at near zero cost, enabling them to confiscate wealth from all users of dollars at will. Although less visible and overtly violent, central banks carry out operations using the same weaponized methods of theft as those wielded by wily Europeans against unsuspecting Africans. So anyway, when free market forces are manipulated, producers gain an asymmetric ability to set prices without regard to customer preferences, thereby converting economic democracies into dictatorships and freedom into tyranny. For money, this implies monopolists can acquire human time, aka labor, in the marketplace at an unfair price. Said differently, money monopolists can steal human time, a malevolent power that effectively makes them slave masters. And this makes me think of also the term the Cantillon effect. And let me Google that or search it, not Google because I use pre-search, and just kind of tell you what the definition of Cantillon effect is, because I had to, or Cantillon effect. Okay, so all right. See, I didn't even know exactly. So, what is the Cantillon effect? Okay, let's see here. The Cantillon effect. When you print money, it causes more pounds to chase fewer goods, pushing up the average cost, resulting in an inflation. This theory has been dubbed the Cantillon effect and is a lesson to us all in the effects of inflation. Printing press enthusiasts often speak of the virtues of spending as a way to help those at the very bottom of society. From lax government programs for the purpose of job creation to recklessly inefficient warfare spending, well-intentioned policy in theory often leads to not so well policy in practice. These outcomes can be contrary to the intended effects of alleviating the status of the poor. Examples are plentiful: rent control, tariffs, planning restrictions, minimum wage laws, and zero-hour contracts that all hurt the poor under the pretense of helping them. Everything's done for the poor and for the children, but it always ends up in terrible results. So the Cantillon effect of inflation is one of many of his myriadical theoretical contributions. Hold on, let's see here. So the Cantillon effect is just, in short, I'm trying to find a quick answer, but it's whoever is closest to the printing of the money is the one that will benefit the most from it. It does not trickle down. Inflation is not simply an average rise in prices. Prices do not rise proportionally or simultaneously. This results in arbitrary benefit to some who have not created any economic value, and detriment to others who have not destroyed anything of economic value by destroying savings, for example. This is Cantillon effect. The person who stands closest to the fan gets the coolest. Yeah, that's the kind of... That's the short of it. So Robert Breedlove gives a little, wheel chart here, and then it goes on down. In a non-violent market competition, producer actions are guided by the preferences of customers, a dynamic that drives low prices and technological innovation. Absent this accountability, producers are incentivized to do anything necessary to expand their market share, up to and including violent coercion. Simply, market pressures keep people honest. As such, the structures of markets and moralities are mutually intertwined. Competition is a natural process of discovery. Truth is the end of inquiry. In this sense, the free market may be thought of as a setting of continuous inquiry that zeroes in on truth. I found highlights. Obviously, you need to read the whole article, and I'm not doing him justice, but I just want to. A lot of people won't take time to read this stuff, so I just need to just say some of these things out loud so you can just at least hear it. Virtue and competitive competency are character traits infused into successful entrepreneurs that manage to survive the constant economic pressures holding them accountable for profit generation. This truth-seeking function of free markets is inherently iterative. Prices, tools, and virtues are constantly changing according to market conditions. Points in market-based games of discovery are denominated in money. the tool used to calculate, negotiate, and execute trades most effectively. So that is money. Money are basically points. And in these market-based games, market competition is the process that keeps producers honest. When it is suppressed through coercion or violence, as it is within legal monopolies, truth becomes distorted into inaccurate prices, low-quality tools, and individual wickedness. For money producers, a monopolization means dishonest producers become counterfeiters and gain a deceptive and violent dominion over human time. Contrary to conventional wisdom, money is not the root of all evil. It is actually just a tool for trading time or labor. And I always say this, that technology can be used for good or bad. The means by which market participants signify sacrifices and successes to one another across the history of economic transactions. Like all tools, money has no independent morality of its own. Tools are amoral, meaning they can be used for both good and evil purposes alike. The moral outcome of using a tool is inextricably dependent on the intention of its user. Money is a temporal trading tool, but as we've seen it can also be wielded maliciously to steal time, as in the agri-beads, in the same way a hammer can be used to build a house or bash a skull. More accurately, money is the root of all sovereignty, the authority to act in the world as one sees fit. Sovereignty, a word etymologically associated with monarchy, money, and royalty, refers to the locus of supreme power in the sphere of human action. According to natural law, sovereignty inheres within the individual, as each person must consciously decide what actions to take. An inner sanctum of sovereignty's generative source lies within each of us, an inviolable principle of reason known as the LOGOS. And LOGOS is in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word, and the fourth gospel, the Gospel of John, I'm not even going to go there, but basically he's saying God is the Logos, and the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, an interface layer between the primary domains of experience, order. So the Logos is an interface layer between the primary domains of experience, order, and chaos. The Logos is the defining feature of humanity. Our ability to tell and believe stories is what distinguishes man or humankind from animal. I think that's a powerful statement there. The Logos is the defining feature of humanity. Our ability to tell and believe stories is what distinguishes humankind from animals. And then he talks about, from sovereignty we derived the word reign, which commonly refers to a period of royal rulership. And so if we have sovereignty, we are our own rulers. And every single government, every single time that the people decided that they did not need a government or a government imposed money or anything like that, then suddenly they lost their power, and lots of life got lost whenever people decided that they were sovereign against some kind of imposed lie. So in this sense, money may be considered, so money is a direct derivation of action and speech, all three of which are essential media for sovereign self-expression. In this sense, money may be considered a form of speech in and unto itself, the language of value. So money is a language. Placing limitations on the use of this language, the purpose of central banks is placing limitations on this, is commensurately catastrophic to restricting the freedom of speech. So placing limitations on money is essentially placing limitations on freedom of speech. And so free speech digs the grave for despotism. And this is extremely important right now in this age when we're being canceled and deplatformed on places like YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and anything like that, where we're being twisted, our words are being twisted, saying that we're spreading misinformation and like. Logos is a Greek word that means ratio or word, the principle at the core of interpersonal communications, which are largely conducted via words and prices, which are exchange ratios expressed in monetary terms. Both words and prices are categorical imperatives, protocols for encapsulating, contrasting, and communicating different aspects of reality. Herein lives the power of the divine Logos to render order from chaos. In language, consider how all words only have meaning relative to one another. All definitions are comprised of other words. You can't have a definition without other words surrounding it. In markets, the intersection of objective supply and subjective demand is the price. So just like you have order and chaos, you have objective is supply and demand, and in the middle of that, you have the price. The price is the Logos. The price is the word. The Logos is the place in between order and chaos. It is the crux. So the price is the dynamic figure reflecting the consensus of the collective logos on any particular good's exchange ratio to any other good. For simplicity, expressed in common language of economic numeracy, money. So restricting the logos is a slippery slope towards totalitarianism. So when you restrict that logos, the price, the freedom, the expression, free expression in all forms is an antecedent to proper moral action. So then I'll scroll on down here. They talk about the winemaker. When inflation, what happens? What do? And as somebody in manufacturing myself at a plant, what do you do? So to comprehend money's impact on morality, consider the hypothetical case of a winemaker living in a centrally banked economy like we do now. We know that his central bank recently doubled the money supply by printing trillions of dollars to save the economy, and is now faced with three options. And that's what we're faced with right now in 2020. They printed 21% of the money of all the money that's been printed since the dollar has been started printing, since 1914, I believe, which is insane in just 1 year. So what does this person do? Continue selling the wine for $20, knowing that the value of each dollar has declined 50% due to inflation? They'll be losing money. Water down the wine using cheaper ingredients, thereby decreasing the production costs and the quality of the wine, but continue selling it for $20. So that's lying to the customer. Or doubling the selling price of his wine to $40 to get the same value for the wine denominated in post-inflation dollars. So being truthful, but people are probably not going to buy that wine, and they will buy the wine that his competitor is making that is lying to the customer, saying it's the same wine. And therefore, he's at risk of losing business. So he's got to see so inflation imposes a temptation of larceny. Larceny is basically theft onto sellers' hearts. So the temptation of theft onto sellers' hearts, forcing them to outweigh financial well-being against moral integrity. In this way, inflation is an infectious disease to society's moral fabric. Inflation-resistant money, then, is an antidote to an afflicted social morality. In this critically important sense, Bitcoin is the only money with a 0% terminal inflation rate, is the cure for many of the moral cancers riddling our world. So money is the source of a great temptation. When a singularly privileged group, a monopoly, can create money out of thin air, they can amend this list of who owns what and arbitrarily, and have a powerful incentive to do so to their own benefit. This money as an ownership ledger angle sheds light on the underlying impetus for central banking, an institute which arrogates itself as master of this list, with an exclusive privilege to advance interests of its private shareholders, even at the expense of enslaving everyone else. The people who are benefiting the most from the Cantillon effect, the people standing closest to the fan, staying cool instead of burning in the heat of slavery. Clearly, a tool that can command human time is an object of great temptation. So, human time is represented in money, and the people that can print the money freely and at will, willy-nilly, are in command of human time, and it is a potent source of power defined by physics as work over time. That's the actual equation for it. So a lust for power is the motivation of most warfare, typically involving attempts to forcibly acquire capital, food, or territory. And a lack of power is closely related to unhappiness, which makes its consolidation of power as alluring. When naturally selected by free market processes, money is a culmination of the collective logos, a synthesis of individual self-sovereign expressions. So when money is naturally selected and done through the competition of the free market and the search for truth, which is what the competition is, then it's a synthesis of individual self-sovereign expression. But natural money has been hijacked by artificial tyrants, and the reason we call states sovereign today is entirely because they are the gangs that reign over the world's freely chosen money, which is gold. So they're the ones that have the gold, the stable money. Hey, what's up, Aura 80? Thanks for jumping on. We're getting pretty deep here. So and I got to end this too. I've gone way over. But anyway, scarcity is arguably the most important property of money, as without an assurance of money of supply limitations, someone always gives in to the temptation to inflate and steal value stored therein. So Let's scroll on down. All national currencies began as paper promises for real money. Today, these currencies are no longer redeemable for real money and instead have been transformed into unfulfilled promises called fiat currencies. And that's what the dollar bill is. It's a fiat currency. If you have the euro, fiat currency. A cologne, fiat currency. Yuan, fiat currency. CBDC will be fiat currency. Nothing more. It doesn't matter. It's not cryptocurrency. So if somebody tries to impose a digital dollar, it is not cryptocurrency. Stable coins are not even really cryptocurrency. It's just a representation of a fiat currency. So printing money actually refers to currency counterfeiting. So a CBDC would be cryptocurrency counterfeiting. So the production of false promises as currencies are no longer tied to real money. Fiat currency is a living lie. So then they talked about the Great Pyramids. A pyramid scheme is an investment scam based on a hierarchical setup of network marketing in which higher layer participants profit at the expense of those lower down. Fiat currencies are pyramid schemes erected by central banks. So our dollar is a pyramid scheme who restrict access to and suppress the price of gold, which would otherwise outcompete their inferior currencies on the free market, since gold is reliably scarce and holds its value across time. And then they talk about how they're continuously adding in new layers underneath here from the top of the gold top of the pyramid. I think the Egyptian pyramid, the top of it was originally gold at one point, possibly. I don't know. In effect, every time a new unit of currency is printed, euphemistically called quantitative easing or QE by central banks, new layers to the pyramid scheme are laid from the top down, and the inflationary costs are externalized onto those using fiat as a store of value. So as you can see, they're talking about continuously adding in layers. So anytime new money is printed, it just adds another layer. And if you're down here, like most of us are, the final recipients of fiat currency, we're just getting more and more weight put on us continuously and burdening us down. Bitcoin is the digital gold, the only money completely immune to corruption. Every layer is composed of real money, not paper promises, and its money supply is fixed at 21 million. Bitcoin has absolutely zero unexpected inflation. It's scarce. It's transparent. You can see who has what. Nobody's hiding anything. All monies exhibit a multi-level marketing valuation dynamic. For Bitcoin, early adopters benefit disproportionately by anticipating later adoption by others. But unlike the unknowable supply, so people call Bitcoin a pyramid scheme and a Ponzi scheme because of this. For early adopters benefit disproportionately by anticipating later adoption. But unlike the unknowable supplies of fiat currency pyramid schemes, Bitcoin has a universally known supply. For fiat currencies, the early adopters are perpetually those with a printing press, a positional asymmetry, political privilege that makes the game unfair. And according to the Cantillon effect, those closest to the early adopters are the ones that benefit the most. A more symmetrical system, Bitcoin, is uniquely characterized by perfect information, meaning that all market participants can see the rules that govern it. So there's no hiding in Bitcoin. Laid in layers of permanence, this digital gold pyramid outshines the inborn uncertainties of fiat currencies. Since money is insurance against uncertainty, its demand is centered on the relative certainty of its monetary properties, and Bitcoin optimizes for all five. It exhibits the divisibility, durability, portability, and recognizability of pure information in the scarcity of time. Like death and taxes, the certainty of 21 million Bitcoin cannot be refuted. Here's another interesting quote by Jordan Peterson. The essential message of alchemy is that individual rejection of tyranny, voluntary pursuit of the unknown and terrifying, may engender an individual transformation so overwhelming that it is equivalent and can only be found in the most profound of religious myths. The lapis philosophorum is an incorruptible substance, which is gold. It's an agent of transformation, equivalent to the mythological redemptive hero. So they're saying the essential message of alchemy is that an individual rejection of tyranny and voluntary pursuit of the unknown and terrifying may engender an individual. So when you search for truth, you can engender an individual transformation. You could transform yourself so overwhelmingly when you seek out truth that it can only be found in the most profound of religious myths, the incorruptible substance. And that's the agent of transformation, equivalent to mythological redemptive hero. Alchemy was a fork off of the church premised on the belief that redemptive knowledge could be found in the laboratory of nature originally. Perhaps Bitcoin actually is the lapis philosophorum, the incorruptible substance pursued by alchemists for centuries, the incorruptible substance giving rebellion to state tyranny, and in doing so, bringing mankind closer to God. Bitcoin is the truth, and by one definition, God is expressed in the truthful speech that rectifies pathological hierarchies, like the central bank right now. The ancient idea from Genesis is that God is the force that freely confronts the chaos of potential with courage, truth, and love to convert it into good and useful order. Being made in the image of God, we are all sovereign individuals imbued with the Logos, a self-generating power responsible for our ability to harmoniously reconfigure the natural world into good and habitable space. And that happens through individual self-sovereignty and transformation in our path in pursuit of knowledge and truth. The Logos is the divine spark intrinsic to us, realizing that words can only miss the mark of the spiritual truth. And up above we said the Logos is that fine line, it's that point between order and chaos, and price is that point between supply and demand. It is a point of truth. It is an expression of people's work and of people's speech and of people's truth. And when that is taken away from us or deceived or hidden from us or insulated from us through all these banks and these centralized structures and hierarchies, then we are living in a lie, basically. So in a primitive sense, the first man who dug a hole to shelter himself from the weather was the first capitalist. And the man who violently encroached on his tiny territory for his own selfish purposes was the first socialist. Capitalism simply means everyone has their exclusive rights to the fruits of their own labor. In other words, everyone owns their own time. Everyone has sovereignty and has right to their own logos. Truth capitalists are free to trade any valuables they invest their time to create, goods, services, or knowledge, with other self-owned people doing the same. Socialism, on the other hand, entails that governments, aka other people, own a greater or lesser portion of your time. So somebody else owns your time. This is not your time. You didn't work for this. The pound of flesh they take through conscription, taxation, and inflation. So yes, and as you can see, this entire quantitative easing, aka inflation of the money supply, and how it's spiking up in the past couple of years here. This implicit taxation via inflation is in addition to all explicit taxes imposed by the U.S. government, all of which are acts of outright socialism. Unless transactions are made by consensual and willing market participants, then exchange is extortive. It is a central tenet of free market capitalism. When we stop conceiving of central banking as an economic story and start to see it as a crime story, we're beginning to see the true picture, because the central banks are nothing more than criminals. So history is clear. Enforced enactment of the fiat currency lie worldwide. Enforced enactment of the fiat currency lie worldwide leads to loss of life on a monstrous scale. Simply said, socialism is fraud, and those who remain silent on the truth of central banking are complicit in its criminality. If you see fraud and do not say fraud, you are a fraud. And look at what has happened to the imposition of inflation and central bank currencies and dictatorships that arise from this lie. And from this insulation and this distortion of your personal sovereignty and logos. You have the Nazis, the Soviets, the Maoists, all these other murders and genocides. Across trading societies, gold was favored as money because it required proof of work to obtain an unforgeable costliness that could not be counterfeited, and therefore self-represented the collective sacrifices made to procure it. Work is a noble pursuit as it carries us closer to the timeliness of God, since all innovations are productivity improvements, instruments for accomplishing greater results within the same expanse of time. Theft is the opposite, a twisting of reality's moral fabric to serve the ego in defiance of the eternal God. Attempts to twist reality in this way always snap back to devastate those who try. Only our salvation from such deceit is truth. Real money is the final extinguisher of debt. So anyway, they go on to talk about George Floyd and the modern slave masters and free market capitalism being a social system which we see through the world as many eyes as possible to attain a high resolution picture of reality. In the past, murders like this, they talked about George Floyd, went unnoticed, but in modernity, the murder of one man can ignite a fiat slave rebellion the world over, exposing this system of slavery, Before being killed, George Floyd was arrested for attempting to use a counterfeit U.S. $20 bill, the same crime the Fed perpetuates by the trillions. And it looks at here to kind of give you a visualization of what $1 trillion looks like. It says $20 trillion U.S. debt in 2017. This is insane. And now it's probably 4 times that. A fiat currency pyramid schemes are promised on the proof of theft, which pushes people to rent, seek, steal, and deceive others to make ends meet. So the reason that $20 bill was trying to be spent was because fiat currency pyramid schemes are premised on the proof of theft, which pushes people to rent, seek, steal, and deceive. And people say, well, it's all a personal choice whether somebody's going to be corrupted like that. And yeah, but the more poor you are, the more weight you have on you, and the higher the temptation is to act in ways that will try to help you survive and get ahead. The first step on this journey is self-education. It is no coincidence that state-owned curriculum teaches us nothing about the origins of money or how it works. They don't want us to know the truth. And again, I'm not justifying anybody's terrible behavior. I'm just saying that there's a lot of pressure in being impoverished, and we all choose our own path. In modernity, we once again find hope of overcoming the financial slavery imposed upon us. The Fed and a volunteer program, open source and cryptographically clandestine network guided by its own North Star, an immutable supply of 21 million Bitcoin. For runaway African slaves, the North Star suspended high in the heavens beyond the reach of vengeful masters was the gift of God, an indistinguishable light for liberation. Bitcoin, a free market supply with the money firmly fixed at 21 million, is the ever-burning guide star for fiat slaves seeking to escape economies controlled by central banking. Global adoption of the Bitcoin is the manumission of humanity from central bank bondage once and for all. And then it ends, and I'll get off this train here. I've gone on a long time. Bitcoin is money without masters, a system governed by rules instead of rulers. By awakening the world from the nightmare of financial slavery, Bitcoin is a dream of freedom becoming true. If you've hung in there with me for this entire time, hats off to you, man. Props. So I know this is a long one. I really wanted to cover this article, and I couldn't really find any short way to do it. But read it for yourself. Listen to the other Robert Breedlove podcasts, and you will understand why I'm so passionate and enthusiastic about everything that is going on right now with all this paradigm shift of money and economics and technology and everything that is happening. And you will understand why I'm preaching this every single day, because it's true. And then with everything going into overdrive mode right now, with people bringing in IoT technology, RFID, blockchain technology, surveillance society, people trying to bring in the jab passports and stuff like that in order to have any type of privilege, people trying to impose slavery in 2-tiered societies, the clean and unclean. You see that theme throughout the Bible, the clean and unclean. And Jesus hung out with all the people, whether or not they were clean and unclean, and he did not distinguish any difference, and that was scandalous. And so is it going to be scandalous for those who have the jab to be able to hang out with the people that do not in the future? Are we going to have this system, this caste system of clean versus unclean, that is completely derided and denounced in the Bible and many other religious texts throughout history? So anyway, that being said, thanks for hanging in. I'll try to be a little more lighthearted. Tomorrow I supposedly, so far, have an interview with the CEO of Meta Game Hub DAO, and he'll explain the whole idea of virtual real estate and creating investment pools for NFTs and virtual real estate. So it'll be a little more lighthearted, a little more fun, and not so deep into this whole Robert Breedlove stuff. But I do think I like to swing back and forth between all these different topics, between lightheartedness and fun, and then deep philosophical, serious topics. It's important to realize that everybody goes through different moods each day, and not somebody's not just funny all the time, or somebody's not just serious all the time. Everybody has many dimensions to their personalities and lives. All right, that being said, you guys have a good day, and I will talk to you tomorrow.